Y'all here? Hell yeah. See this thing. Can you hear? Let me know if you can hear me. All right, cool. What's up, Eve? What's up, Nicey? It was dope. It was dope meeting y'all at the rally. It really was. Like shit. When I be talking to people on this app and on YouTube and shit, I be wanting to meet y'all. I like putting a face to names. It was hella dope. Um, yeah, we gonna be. I just want to just talk generally, just talk some music today because it's been a lot going on. I got some cool announcements to make. That I ain't making no announcements yet, but I got some cool things headed in my favor with my music documentary I'm putting together. And yeah, so we about to tell this story all the way right. You know what I mean? But in the meantime, I don't want to save all the information for the documentary because at the end of the day, talking music is infinite. And what can I do in a short series documentary? If I had 7 hours of music talk, I'd still be short of about 1 billion hours of music talk. So we could talk about this thing a lot. And like I always have to lay the foundation. Why do I have these conversations? Why is it relevant? Black people, we're dealing with so much. Why are we talking about music? I don't want to talk about music. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about reparations. Here's why I bring it up and I put it as part of the conversation. One, because nobody spends all day doing one thing that's just not realistic. Like unless you're like John Coltrane on the sax or something like that, nobody just does one thing all day. We got time for a diversity of topics, and so don't ever let anyone make you think that we got to just focus on one thing. You know what I mean? We can do it all. We can walk and chew gum. I come from the mindset that I have high expectations for Black people because I know how smart we are and I know how great we are. So I'm not one of those scrape the bottom of the barrel. Let's just appeal to the lowest common denominator. And for those who are that way, I have no judgment against that. That's fine. There are plenty of resources and channels out there that deal with that aspect. My point of view more so comes from the highest expectations of us, and I know that we can fight for reparations and talk about our culture at the same time. I, and the reason why it's so important that we talk about our culture is because we have children listening. We got to get back to having the grapevine like we used to have. We got to pass things down, pass down our greatness, because we have a whole lot of people out there passing down our bullshit and attributing bullshit to us that ain't even ours. You know what I mean? So I think it's important that we have these conversations, these cultural conversations, because it's just important that we maintain the higher aspect of our culture, and music is one of them. And music is where we have some of the highest. We have impact on the world in whatever we do, but from our point of view, the biggest impact we have on the world is through our music, because every time our music touches the world, it changes that particular part of the world. And it's been, of course, we have this assault that's all out assault on our music that's going on right now with that Jamaican artist. I was just in our brother Kid Gravity space, and he was talking about this, and that's what made me think about having this conversation. That Jamaican artist talking about Michael Jackson. Bob Marley is more influential than Michael Jackson, and of course I'm gonna get some of y'all up here to speak. Welcome everybody. But actually, before I even get into all that, Eve, I just invite you to co-host. You have anything to say? And also, we will be out because I don't be really looking at the screen when I talk. So Eve, we're gonna have Eve. People who do want to say something, raise their hand, ask me a question, whatever. Eve will let you up, and like she'll just help you, guide the line and make sure you keep your comments not extra long. I'm not gonna tell you to go fast, but don't be talking for like and another thing, and another thing, and another thing, and I got 7 more things I want to say. Don't chill on all that, but you know what I mean. So That's what it is. But Eve, if you want to say something real quick, go ahead. I can't hear you. Are you talking? Let me see here. Are you talking now? I'm having issues with this room. Hey, I might have to restart this room, y'all, because I can't see anybody in here and I can't hear Eve. Yeah, I'm gonna restart. If y'all can hear me, Eve, if you can hear me, send an emoji or something. I think I'm going. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead. Okay, let me see how nice you just requested. Yes. Okay, now I can see more people in the room.
All right.
Okay, I can hear you.
I wanted to just let you know that I can only see three people. I can hear you fine though.
Yeah, this thing's on some wacky shit. I was
Yeah.
just able to see. Yeah, let's restart this room. I'm
Okay.
gonna.
All right.
Uh, y'all up in here? Come on in here. I'm over here sending out invites. Hopefully this shit works this time. All right, I see people actually coming in here, so I can actually see more than one name. So that's a good start.
Can you
Let's see if
hear
we
me
can.
now?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay,
Wonderful.
there we go. There we go. That last one was on some bullshit. So I'm laying the foundation down again, like I did in the other room. If y'all was in here already, excuse me, but this shit is going up on my YouTube, so it's gonna be like a TV taping. If you ever been to a TV taping, sometimes you got to sit your ass down through that scene 3 different times. You dig? Um, but we gotta get some more people up in here anyway. What's up, Villa? What's up, Quan? And yeah, how we gonna do it? We just gonna, we gonna. I'm gonna lay the foundation. Then, of course, we gonna talk. Cause I want this to be discussion based. You know what I mean? I'm gonna say what I gotta say, but I wanna pass the mic to some of y'all, any of y'all, if you request. I wanna pass the mic to you and get your opinion on what we're talking about. So let me just go back and lay the foundation down again. Um, See, this is for the YouTube audience. You niggas need to get on Twitter and follow me at DwannB and come to these goddamn discussions live for y'all people over on YouTube. And later on, Dr. Short gonna probably come on through here. Um, but why do I think it's important that we talk music? I think it's important that we talk music because music is our cultural. It's a cultural foundation. It's a cultural cornerstone. Music is life. Life is music. Yeah, even when it comes to movies, I had this discussion last night on my YouTube. The importance of live instrumentation and music and why program music sucks. Because if you notice, if you're watching a movie, you can have a movie without words. You can have a movie in a foreign language that you don't understand. But you can't have a movie without music. Music is the base component to everything, and we are the standard bearers of music and how music is played around the world. So since we are as Black Americans the standard bearers, I think talking about music is highly important because it gives us and it gives our children a cultural perspective that we've not only done something in this world, but we've done it at the highest level and we continue to do it at the highest level. And the only time is that's ever been interrupted is when we've been interrupted by outside forces. So I think this is extremely important that we have these kind of conversations to maintain our culture. But in music, if you watch a movie has to have live instrumentation. When it gets to those horror films, and when the anticipation is building up, there's a music bed under all of these scenes. And the reason why they use live strings and live orchestras and live arrangements is because the live instrumentation is what's used to capture your emotion. And so I asked a critical question last night: Why is live music? Why is program music good for music, but it's not good for movies? Because if program music is all they tell us it is, then it should be you should be able to use that same music in a movie and incite the same emotions, right? Right? But you can't because they put that stuff in there to poison our music, and we have to be aware of that because we have another generation of young musicians coming up, and we want to set the course correct for them. So as they start to create, as our 2 and 3 year olds, when they get to be 10, 11, 12, as they start to create music as 14, 15 year olds, we want them to grow up in an environment where they understand their duty and responsibility as an artist and how to draw from that and create music that's going to heal us moving forward. So that's why we had these discussions. But when it comes down to it with music, we have there was a discussion on Twitter about some Jamaican chick that said Michael Jackson was on, like, Bob Marley was more influential than Michael Jackson. And when they come out and say shit like this, you first always got to ask who sent them. Because if somebody didn't send you, how did the world even pick up the fact that no one knew who you were yesterday? Now, most of the people who know you who you are now, outside of that small fan base, most of them know you as a person that said something about Bob Marley is better than Michael Jackson. And who gave you that platform? Why is this getting sent all over social media? Some of y'all always know that when shit like that comes out, somebody sent them. So we gotta know that. We gotta know that. And so, but having that in the back of our mind that somebody sent them, we gotta discuss what it is because we want to make sure we have these discussions. Because, like I always say, the children are listening, and you can't. How can I say this? When I talk music, one thing we got to stop doing as a people is this whole ranking thing, top to bottom, top five. I was just saying, I was just in Kid Gravity Space about an hour ago. We had a good talk on music, and that's what made me think about doing this room. We were talking about ranking, and I was saying, the whole ranking top to bottom, that's actually not something that's native to how we view things as Black people. That's something that we've picked up from the European culturally. That's a Billboard magazine thing. That's a Rolling Stone magazine thing. Oh, Elvis is the king. That's a Eurocentric mindset that says only one can be at the top. That's not how we think as a people naturally. Music wise, because someone asked me a question, who did they say was the greatest back then? And the answer I gave them was, people will say, we've always traditionally looked at things in a lineage kind of way. You know what I mean? It would be like there was like a lineage of dancers. You had the Nicholas brothers, you had Jackie Wilson, then there was that Jackie Wilson to James Brown. Then from James Brown, to Michael Jackson, to MC Hammer, and now to Chris Brown. That's how we traditionally would see it. Not, oh, this person is the best, this and that. You know what I mean? And we would have discussions there was always an ongoing debate who was better, Count Basie or Duke Ellington. And people for the most part, musicians sort of settled on Duke Ellington. Even Count Basie gave the credit to Duke Ellington, but it was never a fight. It was more so my guy is Count Basie, your guy is Duke Ellington. It was a thing. It was my guy is Lester Young, your guy is Bird. You know, and we saw things, we would talk about it and discuss, but We didn't really go into all these rankings and this person is the GOAT, greatest of all time. That's something that really got embedded in the Generation X slash millennial generation, starting in the 90s, really is when we started to really see things as a hierarchy and start to rank these top fives. And, you know, we never traditionally as a people paid attention to album sales. Like we would, like, if we were talking about who was better, Count Basie or Duke Ellington, it would never be, well, Duke Ellington sold 16 million albums and Count Basie only sold 15 million. Because we've always inherently understood as a people that those folks keep their thumbs on the scales. We can never trust their numbers. So why would their numbers ever become part of our discussion? Why would their Grammys, their Oscar awards ever be? Why would those things ever be part of the discussion? We don't have any control over that. But that's something that we've adopted. We've never given a damn about how many Grammys somebody had. When the discussion was between Michael Jackson and James Brown, it wasn't, well, Michael Jackson got this many Grammys and James Brown got that many. It wasn't that. You know what I mean? It was because we've always known that. Look, Marvin Gaye didn't get a Grammy until right when he died. Sexual Healing was his first Grammy. Then he died a year later. Like, he didn't get a Grammy for none of that great music. The Isley Brothers, their first hit was in 1959. Ronald Isley had another hit last week. How many Grammys he got? Nobody. We never gave a damn about no Grammy. That's beneath us. We never gave a damn about what they say, how many records they sold. That's beneath us. We've always had these we've always had conversations about music, and we would talk about our preference. I like this guy over the other guy. But to crap on another black artist because he like another artist, like that bullshit ass king of R&B discussion we had 2 years ago, that was all over Twitter. Who's the king of R&B? It ain't no damn king of R&B. That was the stupidest shit. Now, because it was just like, of course, you first of all, you're going to probably go with the person that's in your era that dominated your favorite era, and you're probably going to go with the person that was in your region. Not because you love your region more than other regions. It's just that the person that's in your region, the vibration of their music is in tune with the vibration of your environment. So to even go there, and when you look at the list of greats that we've had as people, I mean, I saw people totally crapping on artists in order to big up a different artist. That is not us. So we got to first stop that shit within house. And when we stop that, because when we do that stuff in house, that opens the door for these jackasses like this Jamaican chick coming in saying that Bob Marley was better than Michael Jackson. That make them be like, oh, I'm going to put my guy in there too. Man, if you don't sit your ass down and go on over and play a steel drum, no disrespect, but the fuck, you know what I mean? So we open the door to that when we have these stupid discussions. We have to get back into talking about our greatest and supporting them all. It could be, I should be able to, Marvin Gaye, if I say Marvin Gaye's my favorite, the next black man shouldn't say, oh man, you don't like R. Kelly? Just because I like Marvin Gaye don't mean I dislike R. Kelly. Look, a song is only like 3 or 4 minutes long anyway. Shit, the next song might be Maxwell. The next song after that might be Music Soul Child. Why the fuck are we arguing? And that's something I think we can clean up in house, and that'll tighten the door up because we got people bold enough to throw in they people in the hat when Bob Marley doesn't have the cultural impact that Stevie Wonder. Like before we even get to Michael Jackson, what about Stevie Wonder's impact? Like, what about Mark? Like, he's not as culturally impactful as Count Basie was on music. Count Basie, goddamn, had the Nazis having internal fights during World War II because Hitler didn't want them listening to Basie, and the soldiers were like, basically, "Fuck you, Hitler. We need this nigga music." Count Basie and Duke Ellington, they started cultural warfares Like every generation, there's a black artist, James Brown. They cause cultural warfare within the home of other environments because the parents want the children to listen to more traditional music, but the children want to hear what these niggas in Black America are putting out. And we do this time and 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 time again. Multiple artists within the same generation doing this time and time again, and they get one. Then when they finally get one, they go at the person that they perceive as our top. But again, that environment only exists because we let it exist. Connie just texted me and said the room is kind of malfunctioning. Can y'all hear me? I can't see everybody in here, but Eve, if you can see anybody with their hands raised.
Yeah, I can see. Well, no hands are up, but there's more listeners than there are people that I see in the room, like people who are listening from their browser.
Okay.
Um, but I can hear you just fine. I'm not having the same issues I was having the first room.
Okay, cool. So if anybody raises their hand and want to say something, feel free. Um, feel free to raise your hand if you want to say something. What's up, Nikki? What's up, Lo? What's up, Quan? What's up, Nice to Grow? Good seeing y'all. And everybody else, I can't see nobody else. Um, so if somebody raised their hand, let them on up. In the meantime, I'll keep running my mouth. Eve, did you want to say something?
Devon, yeah, if I could, real
Yeah, go ahead.
quick, that white people gratification thing, that's something that we really need to shake. But I get it because everybody feels like if you're not validated, I mean, this goes from being a doctor to a teacher to specific types of artistry. Like if you don't have their letters behind your name, they're not going to take you seriously. And a lot of us say the same thing. If you don't have their credentials behind you, then we're not going to take you seriously. And I think that back in the day, and you might be a little bit older than me, not by a lot, but just back in before our time, those credentials didn't seem to matter because we were doing for self more than we've bought into the system. So if we could figure out a way to get back there, that's probably a move.
Hey, it's funny you said it because it's something my dad, and I said we're gonna get to you. It's something my dad used to always quote a Curtis Mayfield line from. There's a song that Curtis Mayfield has called "If There's a Hell Below, We're All Gonna Go." And Curtis Mayfield has a line where he says, "Educated fools from uneducated schools." Think about that for a second. There was a time in our society that we understood that the schooling system was a center for miseducation, and the people with that miseducation thinking that they have education are nothing but educated fools. And it's not the crap on degrees. I have a college degree, and so I'm not here to say it, but you don't see that college degree nowhere on none of my goddamn profiles because they don't mean anything. Like I saw the other day, it was National College Graduation, crack College Graduates Day. I think it was like December 2nd, and I saw all the people posting pictures of their graduation, and I realized I don't have any graduation photos because at my graduation, I walked. It was hot as fuck. I went to Cal State Northridge. It's the summertime. We in these black ass gowns. Man, my last name is Brown. I was one of the first names called. I walked across that stage. My mom got. I'm sure she took a picture of me somewhere. I walked across that stage, got that little bullshit ass paper that they hand to you, and walked straight to my car. I didn't stay. I wasn't about to listen to them. I was like, y'all, man, I spent my money on this shit. Thank God I didn't graduate with a balance. But I even understood when I was in college. I'm just doing this to answer whatever questions you tricks may have. And then once I got that degree and started applying for jobs, I realized at the end of the day that degree didn't mean shit. So but it's a lot of us that really don't understand that. And I learned very young that I'm gonna have to get it on my own. But it's a lot of black people who are under this misconception, and what we're doing is we're raising our children to make the same mistakes that we made, that we were raised to make. You know what I mean? To make, and we gotta. And this is a good conversation to have when it comes to talking about music. Their accolades don't mean anything. What means the most is what comes from what's coming out your heart, what's coming out your spirit. Because the thing that's gonna make you $1 trillion, the thing that's gonna make you great, is that thing inside your spirit that you love. Because every time a black person expresses what's in their spirit authentically, they express some dope shit that the rest of the world wants to consume. and we have to have that level of confidence within ourselves. Um, but go ahead, Nicey.
Sorry, piece of the family, y'all. I was driving. I just pulled in my garage, but piece of the room. Thank you, Dwan, for allowing me to speak. Hello, Eve. Hello, everyone in the room. Um, Speaking on the education part, my son this year, his senior year in high school, decided to join the Black Student Union, which he's like is stupid. He was like, we don't talk about anything Black, we don't talk about anything cultural, and he had a debate with one of the teachers over the Black Student Union about college, and he did a speech on why college is a scam. And he said that she kept trying to debate him on all of his talking points. And he came with full on receipts, percentages, how, Black people have a lot of degrees, least employed, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, Mom, she pulled me over in the classroom at the end and was like, your speech was good, but I don't want you to discourage other students from going to college. And he was like, well, I'm not discouraging them, but there's other things that we can do. There's also trade schools. We don't have to spend, thousands of dollars on 4 years of college, really not knowing or understanding what it is that we want to do, and versus focus on what it is that we truly want to do. Secondly, that troll Jamaican girl that, made that disrespectful comment. I've been to Jamaica. And at the resort out there, they have their performances that they do every single night for everyone at the resort to attend. And every person that they impersonated, Michael Jackson being one, Beyonce being another, and other FBA people, Bob Marley was not one of them. And I found that to be very, very interesting. Yeah, you may, drive around or whatever and see a mural or something like that of his, but even at the club in the resort that we stayed in, they didn't play reggae music. Not that it's, wasn't created by an FBA person, but they weren't even playing his music. Everything that I heard over there was Drake, Michael Jackson, and all our FBA artists. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad you made that point because you know our music is like crack, and when it touches other people's cultures, they can't get enough of it, and it changes their culture. They adapt our instrumentation, they adapt our style. It's like I was saying before, when we were talking about the whole situation as far as us having we cause cultural warfare within people's homes because there's something about what we create, what we produce. There's something about that when other cultures hear it, they decide. They decide. We don't tell them to. They decide to sit it down and pick up what we got going on. And even when other cultures, even when like white folks create an instrument or like I said, the drum set is something that's completely our creation. The guitar comes from the diddley bow, and Bo Diddley created his own type of guitar. So guitar, white folks created guitar, but we also had our own guitars. But the bass guitar was created by the Fender company, the electric bass. The stand-up bass had been around since the classical era. But the electric bass was created by the Fender company. And when Fender wanted the bass to be premiered and wanted to be played, they put it in the hands of a black man named Monk Montgomery. And he was your first electric bass player that played on your early rock and roll R&B. That was Monk. His name was Monk Montgomery. Look him up. Monk Montgomery. He's who the person that Fender put the bass in the hands of. So even though the white company created the first electric bass, it was put into the hands of a black man to show the world how to play it. Same thing with the Fender Rhodes, the Rhodes piano. The not the Fender Rhodes, that Rhodes, the electric Rhodes. When they wanted that to be played for the first time on record, they put that in the hands of Herbie Hancock, and it was premiered on the Bitches Brew album from Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. That's when you get that electric piano and jazz. That was put into the hands of Herbie Hancock. When it came to the drum machine was put into the hands of Sly and the Family Stone. When it came to the keyboard that plays the string arrangements and the horn arrangements, who was the first to premiere that? Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life, Village Ghetto Land. That's the first time a string section was put onto a keyboard. So even when those folks invent a particular instrument that's electronic or whatever, it's always put into the hands of a foundational Black American to show the world how to play it. And either we have it first or we're the ones with the biggest influence on it. No one can trace the roots back to any instrument to a white person playing it. The guitar, the acoustic guitar, the electric guitar, all the white people are going to tell you they go back to Bob Johnson, 1929. That's what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you that they listen to Sister Rosetta Tharpe on the electric guitar. They're going to tell you they listen to Chuck Berry, and they listen to Muddy Waters and Bo Diddley and Howlin' Wolf. And these are the people that laid the standard on as to how the guitar is played. Drums. When the JoJo, the drummer from Count Basie, he's the one. Not JoJo White. Not JoJo White. Excuse me, I'm forgetting his name, but Count Basie's drummer. I'm drawing a blank to his name. He brought color to the drum set. Before him, the drum set was just a keeping mechanism. The black drummer from Count Basie brought in the color to the drum set. When it came to the drum set being a featured instrument that's played out front, that's from Max Roach. Max Roach made that change. Bass guitar when thumb bass became a thing, something that was the signature from Flea from that was a signature from Flea from what's his name, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Uh, he's the first white person to do it, but the thumb bass came from Larry Graham. Who is Larry Graham? Larry Graham is Drake's uncle. Um, Drake comes from a highly sophisticated musical family. His grandmother was one of the greatest organists in the Bay Area, going back to the 40s. That was Drake's grandmother through his father. And his father's brother is Larry Graham, the person that innovated how modern funk bass is played. So, I mean, whether we go when it comes to the drum machine, we didn't invent the drum machine, but we invented how it's played. We created how it's played with the standard bearers auto tune. Auto tune was created for Cher because Cher couldn't sing, but they wanted Cher to sound like the black women. So since Cher couldn't sound like the black women, they created this thing called auto tune. And so they turned that's how they created. Black people turned auto tune into a damn instrument. We didn't create the talk box, but Roger Troutman turned the talk box into the instrument. He's so down the line, no matter what innovation we're talking about, either we invented it or we are the standard bearer as to how that thing is played. And so it's very important as a people that we have these discussions because our children are listening. And it's very important that our children listen to us have these discussions because they have to know their greatness. And when you just sit around and talk to a child to say you, and this is top down conversation, and you're pointing down and you saying, "Come on over here, son. Let me tell you something." They ain't listening to you. Then you got to have these conversations casually. You got to pick up on these conversations. These got to be daily conversations that we have, so they know the inherent greatness. Because the thing that holds Black people back the most is the fact that we don't have confidence in ourselves. Is That's the biggest thing white supremacy took from us. It took our internal confidence. It made us think that everything great is outside of us and not within us. So the more we have these discussions, the more we have these talks, the more not just the children, us as people, we got to know that we great. Hell, you got to put your mask on first before you give somebody else. That's what the airplane people say, right? So this is rest. This is mental cleansing for us as a people too. What's up, Sheena? Good seeing you. Um, we got Connie in here. Good seeing you. I'm just now looking down at the screen. Shit, I'm over here looking at my Spotify, trying to figure out what I'm gonna play next. Um, I got some Corey Henry playing right now. If you niggas don't know who Corey Henry is, look him up. CoryHenry. He has a band called the Funk Apostles. They've been around for about 6 or 7 years. And Corey Henry, his music is authentic soul. That brother, he has a YouTube video going around of him playing the organ in church when he was 3. But if y'all not up on Corey Henry, look him up. But anyway, again, we're talking about music and the importance of having these music discussions, because we have to know as a people that we can't judge our music. We have to get rid of this whole Grammy thing. Damn a Grammy, damn a top 10. It doesn't matter. I saw people going around, and this black folks, we sharing this meme. Beyonce and Jay-Z have a combined 88 Grammys or Grammy nominations. So don't, you can't impress me with a Grammy nomination. I need to see. I mean, what's your cultural impact?
They said they was Emmy nominated producers.
Like, and that's the thing. Like, the real artists don't even be caring. Like, I was watching the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Lionel Richie just got inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And again, he invited my father-in-law to come, and like always, he said no. The same way he said no to accept his Grammys 40 years ago. He ain't giving a fuck. He's like, I ain't going. I don't care. And like, this is the second artist that you've gotten help get to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like, dude, he's like, I'm not tripping. And but like when I talk to him, like a lot of your true artists, and that's not. And let me take this back. It's not. I'm not here to down Jay-Z. I'm not. I'm not. And there are people out there who do want to be up top, and they do like to be out front. And we all have our own personality. We are all living on our cards. As a matter of fact, today's Jay-Z's birthday. He's an Ace of Diamonds, and Ace of Diamonds people, they are the most up, like they are the most boisterous. Look at me, motherfuckers you ever gonna meet. So if you know somebody born December 4th, I guarantee you that's an attention whore. But that's just who he is. So I'm not here. I'm not saying this to compare and contrast. But what I am saying is this: uh, throughout our history, the majority of our artists that are really, really those ones, the ones that really, really bring it, they don't want no damn accolades. They don't, they don't do it for the accolades. They do it because it's just something inside of them that has to get out. And if they get an accolade, fine. And we as a people, we understand that. We understand, and we also understand inherently, and this is something I think we need to re-understand as a people consciously. And we need to understand that I don't want to be racist. I sound racist because I ain't got no issues with white folks. I really don't. But what the fuck can a white person say to judge our music? How can somebody that didn't create it, don't know how to play it, need 2 generations to figure it out? How can they accurately assess what's good and what's not? Let's just get to the nitty gritty. And this is not the down one. I don't want nobody going around saying, oh, yeah, I'm not no rah, 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 F all white people, whatever. I'm just talking bare bones. These people don't have the mental enzymes to digest what we put out. That's why they got to take the season. That's why their version of rock and roll is just unseasoned R&B. Whatever music they create, they do is whatever we did, and they just take the seasoning out the same way they do with the food. That's why your favorite soul food restaurant, the minute they open up a division over in the white side of town, there go the salt. That shit about to start tasting regular than a motherfucker. So how can these regular food creating bland? You ever listen to the Rolling Stones? I mean, for real, you ever listen? Look, have y'all ever just played the Beatles for like 10 minutes? Can you, white people, rant and rave about the Beatles? Black people, can any of y'all in here listen to the Beatles for more than 10 minutes? Like, for real. No BS.
Dwan, if we're going to talk white people music, I think the only ones that I'm going to give it to is Queen. And I still have reservations about that. But it's definitely not going to be the Beatles.
Look, I'm not here to say, look, when it comes to white people music, I love Steely Dan. Asia. I love that shit. Now, mind you, it's mostly black musicians. That's Wayne Shorter. That's Bernard Purdy on drums. And, that's mostly black musicians. But I fucks with Steely Dan. I fucks with Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know what I mean? I like Phil Collins. Although Phil Collins, I was Earth and the Fire backing him. I like, I like Average White Band. I love Average White Band. Schoolboy Crush, that's my shit. But again, I'm not saying all of them bad. I'm just saying that we have to take pride in what we've done, unabashedly unashamed. because
But
we
Dewan, to that point though, I find this issue is an issue that we have globally because we're so fly. We create shit and then we leave it alone because we're gonna create some more fly shit. And I think that that gives an opportunity for other groups to come in and take it if we've left it alone.
and that's 100% right, and that's why I don't even get mad at other groups. Like I thank the Mexicans for holding on to music from the '60s because we left it alone. Music from the, if you want some lyricism, you got to go back to the '60s. Smokey Robinson said, he said he said, seems like love should be easier to bear, but it's such a heavy load. Worldwide travelers, you ain't gone nowhere until you travel down love's road. That's a man. Is there a more beautiful line than that? He said, I don't care how far across the globe you've traveled, you ain't done shit until you went down the road of love. And that's a whole era of poetry that's just there for us. And we've moved on. So I actually honor and thank the Mexicans for holding on to that. Because how can you let that go? We done so found a way to do it. I was talking to my sister. My sister's a school teacher. She was playing some of her music, and she was talking about how when she plays some of her like neo soul era stuff from the '90s and the 2000s, the Mexican kids be knowing what the music is because their parents listen to it, but the black kids don't. We talking about Erica Badu. She's like the black kids ain't really up on game with Jill Scott and Erica Badu, but the Mexican kids know every damn lyric. That's something again. I think that's a part of the reason why we're in some of the situations that we're in, because if you don't honor your ancestors, what do you have without your ancestors? And we tend to not honor our ancestors. And I think I think a lot of that, us moving on the way we have, a lot of that has to do with that's just a leftover condition from slavery. Because in slavery, we've had families ripped up. We've had things we've created, like whatever everything that we created, we had to give to someone else for over 200 years. And even the size of us who weren't enslaved, like I was talking about my lineage, my Roberts lineage, and my family that was never enslaved. Even though they weren't enslaved, they had to give up literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres because in North Carolina, because after Nat Turner did what he did, that the government came and said we ain't gonna allow any more free niggas to live here in North Carolina. So they had to pack up and leave all that generational land behind and start over in Indiana. So even those who weren't affected by slavery, we still had to build things and leave. We gotta see things from a cultural perspective because there's a cause and effect relationship between everything that happens in life. And if we only look at the effect, we don't learn the story. And so we got to see the cause and effect relationship. Why do black we so when we see these things that's going on in our society, we got to ask the first question, and that's why does this happen? And we got to really study and analyze why. Why do black people create and move on? That's not natural to create a baby and leave it. Think about that. Let's just think about nature. Nature doesn't create as far as as human nature. It's not natural to create something, to birth something and leave it, is it? That's an unnatural move. So since it's unnatural, we have to ask ourselves a question and analyze why are we making this unnatural move of birthing things and moving on. Well, my assumption is, and this from my study, from the way I look at things, it's because we've been forced to birth things and move on for well over 200 years. Oh shit, my song is on. That Roy Hargrove. I love this shit right here. Look up Roy Hargrove, Juicy. It's a song on the RH Factor album. Niggas missed that. That album came out like 20 years ago. It was an R&B album that black people just missed it. Go back and listen to it. Well, anyway, it's unnatural for black people. It's unnatural to create something and move on. So when you've had 200, 300, 400 years of building whole societies and not being able to participate in the society that you built the houses, you built the roads, you built the railroads, you built the economy. And let's tell the truth, entertainment was around back then too. You did have slaves that were also entertainers. It's a lie that say black people couldn't. Every black person couldn't have instruments, but there were still always black people with instruments. And the same economy that we have right now with music was the economy back then. You think these people just learned slave contracts in Jim Crow? Where the slave contract comes from slavery. You had slave owners who had talented musicians as slaves, and they would send those slaves out on the road, sell out concerts. Music has always been around, and we've always been at the forefront of it. They would sell out shows, and the slave master keeps all the money. This didn't start in Jim Crow. This didn't start. This was going on during slavery. We got to know that. So we've had 400 years of being conditioned of creating and moving, creating and moving, creating and moving. So now, we even though we're still dealing with the mental trauma of slavery and the mental effects of slavery, we got to know that now we got to start looking back. We got to stop doing that unnatural move. And what's the unnatural move? Creating and moving on. Because when we do that, there's still always an aspect of us who are willing to stay behind, and because as you move on, there are going to be people who move on, but there still is always a segment that appreciate what was the past. Evidence: Frankie Beverly and Maze. Frankie and Beverly and Maze do a concert is going to sell out. Frankie Beverly ain't been able to sing in 15 years. Frankie Beverly be. I went to his last 2 or 3 concerts. I went to a Frankie. He's singing like that motherfucker sound like a struggling hippo when he was singing. He can't sing no more, and we know it. But guess what? Black folks still buy a ticket because we love Frankie Beverly. We love him because of the love he gave us in his music, the vibration of love in his music. Songs like Joy and Pain, You Giving Me Happiness, Southern Girl, Golden Time of Day. Go back and listen to Golden Time of Day. Golden Time of Day is a song about waking up to who you are at your highest self. The Golden Time of Day is when you realize how the fuck dope you is, nigga. That's what the Golden Time of Day is. When you realize that you're not the slouch that society said you are, but you're the God that you've always conceived of yourself. That's the Golden Time of Day. So since Frankie Beverly and Maze gave us those gifts within their music, we still support that man, even though he can't sing anymore. We don't care. We sing along with him. We be like, Southern Girl, because we know he can't do it. You know what I mean? So, but that also shows how we are as a people when you treat us right. You know what I mean? I think part of us moving on top of us not appreciating it is, us the unnatural thing of slavery. Another reason why we move on is because we don't control the media. We don't control the publications out there. So the publications move on. And you know how white society acts. White society ain't gonna let every nigga be great. So they only gonna let one nigga be great at a time. Like, just because you're not on top, is Anita Baker any less great now than she was 30 years ago? Just because she doesn't have a number one? Overall, we love Anita Baker, but the publications ain't going to give her any shine. So since it becomes an out of sight, out of mind thing, with us, that's another thing. So I just think we need to spend more time, as we love our artists. And then another thing we can do is, as adults, when the younger people are around, when they're playing their music, it'll go a long way if we don't shit on their music. Yes, I know it sounds like trash and it sounds plastic. I get it, but they're never going to listen to us if we're just crapping on what they do. We got to.
Dwan, I'm always going to push back here because some of their music is trash. It's straight up trash. But you're right. You can't shit on it. You have to offer them something better. Always. You cannot just take something away from them and not give them an alternate, because that'll just make them hate you for shitting on their interests. But yeah, some of the music, I'm sorry. If it's talking about uh, some fuckery, pills or depression. A lot of their music is depressive as AF. Like, they shouldn't be listening to that stuff. It makes for bad behavior.
It can, and I get that point. And again, if anyone else wants to speak, just raise their hand. Even bring you up. I'm not gonna hog the mic if you guys want to speak, but y'all know I can go all goddamn day. So if y'all don't want to speak, I'll have at it. Anyway, look, I grew up in the '80s and the '90s. The '90s was full of shit. '90s music was trash. Let's just tell the whole truth. '90s music, they took away the orchestration. It wasn't no more live beats. You got now, especially as you get into the late '90s, you got every singer trying to be hard. Nigga, how you gonna be singing in Timberland boots trying to be a nigga? think about the lyrics of this. Meet me at Meet me at the altar in your white dress. We ain't getting no younger. We might as well do it.
Might as well.
If somebody's marrying you because you might as well do it, how the fuck long is that relationship gonna last? Let's just tell the truth. If somebody might as well marry you, you might as well just stay single. Cause you can do bad all by yourself. Why would you want to commit your life and change your last name for somebody who just like, we might as well do it? I remember when that song dropped. I was in college when that song dropped. Because I've always had a foot in both doors. I've always been aware of what's going on musically now, but I've always been into music of the past, of the 70s and the 60s. And so when that song dropped, I was my first year of college, Santa Monica College. I remember listening to that shit. And then they had the remake, the remix. And I remember thinking, like, I remember comparing that song to, there's a song by Smokey Robinson that says, it'll be easier to take the wet from water or the dry from sand than it is for me to take my love from you. I mean, when we're talking about rhythm and blues, those are two different worlds. A song we could talk about Teddy Pendergrass, Harold Melvin Blue. Teddy Pendergrass got a song, "You're My Latest, My Greatest Inspiration." You know what I mean? We went from Marvin Gaye saying, "Come live with me, angel. Come live with me in comfort." We went from that to let's get married because we getting so we had shitty ass music in the 90s and the 2000s too. You know what I mean? And really bad, really bad. We had a song. I mean, we had a song called that was what was that one song? Say what, say what, say what? You know what's up. What the fuck is this nigga talking about? But and I liked that song when it dropped too. I did. But when you look back, what the fuck is say what, say what, say what? You know what's up. I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you. I'm wanting you. You know what's up. I mean, I would like for the game to be played a little more cold. See, I would like the game. You compare that to a song by Bobby Womack, and there's a song called "The Fact of Life." If y'all listen to Incense and Ashtrays, I played it. It's like a 6 minute long song, and Bobby Womack got a song where he talking to the chick, and he like, look. And she's like, I hope you don't think I'm a groupie. He was like, look, I'm not looking at you that way because if you weren't that way, you wouldn't be sitting here anyway. And then he's going in saying the fact of the life is, and the name of the song is He'll Be There. The facts of life is I'm on the road every day. You know what I mean? I do this thing, and if we gonna do this thing, I'm gonna don't leave your man now because he'll be there for you, nigga. I won't. And it was just one of the coldest. He's been sick. When you listen to, you know what I mean? When you listen to I Miss You by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes and Teddy Pendergrass, I mean, you're listening to some real effing music, some real progression in conversation. And to go from that to say what, you know what's up, it's a major drop off in quality of music. But I had to listen to that and go back and listen to the other stuff and see the contrast. So now when my dad did come to me and talk about how good his music was, I now have something to base it off of because I'm thinking like, just listening objectively, I'm like, say what, say what, say what versus, Al Green, Let's Stay Together. Like, well, objectively, just being objective, even though I like this song, being objective, the quality of that shit is way better. And so if we approach it from that point of view to where we acknowledge what they do, what they like, and bring out, and then remove the attachment from eras, because my era is the 90s and the 2000s. That's the era of music that I grew up on. But when I'm talking music, I got to be objective. That music in comparison to what was going on in the 60s and 70s, it's two different worlds. It's not close. I mean, it's hard because it's like that's my era. Of course I want to say my era is the best. My era was better in basketball, shit at least. You know what I mean? I got some areas my era was good at, but music wasn't one of them. Just being objective. You know.
Dewan, we have a new speaker to the stage, and if y'all could retweet the room, that would be cool. I think a
I
lot
can.
of people would benefit from this conversation of music because it's ours, and we need to reclaim it. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't see anything. Go ahead. Whatever speaker. Go ahead.
go ahead, Bobby. Peace to you.
Oh,
Okay, I hear you
good
now.
afternoon. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Am I coming through? All right, good afternoon, everybody. How you guys doing? I'm glad to be here on the stage. First and foremost, great topic, great dialogue, Duan. Um, Even though everything you're saying is all facts, I'm going to need you to be a little bit more kind and gentle with that Big Mac truck you rolling over all these toes out here, because you keep it at 100, but you also hurting my feelings a little bit. It's kind of tough right now. But I wouldn't. I agree with what you're saying, but I don't know if it's an issue of semantics or not. But I like to put a little spin on it and say it's not so much an issue of the quality of music. I don't think, but I think of the characteristics of the music. So one of the things that, and just using some of the examples that you pointed out for some of those other songs, whether it was something that was touching and heartfelt, like Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, or whether it was just pure flat out scumbaggery at its highest form with Bobby Womack. I think there was a level of intentionality back then in the music that does not really exist, at least not commonly in the music today. But I think that's more reflection of the culture. And to be honest, I don't know which really influences which, because that's like a case of the chicken or the egg debate. Does the music and the art affect inform the culture? Does the culture inform the music? But one of the things that's kind of always jumped out to me, just being aware of that aspect, period, about how music and culture relates, way back in, I think it was 90, I think it was in 98 when the album dropped. I don't even know, I can't remember which one it was on, but on Most Def's album, well, Yassine Bey, let me put respect on his name choice, but the introduction to his track "Fear Not of Man." I don't think that was on the New Danger. I think that was on the one before that. But he goes into this little, I think, about a 20, 30-second little intro diatribe where he basically saying, people always asking him, Most, what's going on with hip hop? What direction is it taking? How do you feel about it? And he mentioned how he always tells people, if you want to look at what's going on with hip hop, you got to look at what's going on with the people. And he said, whatever you hear, if the people are doing all right, then hip hop is going to be doing all right. If the people are doing poorly, hip hop is going to be doing poorly. And he basically was talking about how people make out music. He's saying hip hop, but really we can throw music in it as a whole as being some kind of giant that's up in the hillsides that comes down to us and spends time with us every now and then. But he said, no, music is us. So whatever's going on with us is what we're going to see in the music. So saying if you want better music, we need to have better people. And I think that's very true because you look and see when we're taking turns with this music and how everything is very indirect, just no real direction to speak of. Everything's just ambiguous and just vague. If you look at the culture, the way people are living, it also reflects that though. We talk about the mumble rapping and all the drug usage and abusage and the depression that's in the music that's coming out of these kids today. But if we look at what the state of the kids are now, it reflects that. A lot of these kids are taking all kinds of drugs that don't even have proper names now. Back then, it used to be just weed, crack, and cocaine, and even heroin back then. Nowadays, you're lucky if you can get them on that. They're taking synthetic stuff that doesn't even have any proper natural base to it, and it's wiping them out in just one hit now. A lot of these kids are dealing with all kinds of trauma and stuff in their relationships and their families and everything, and we're seeing that bleed over into the music. So the idea that there's a disconnect today with a lot of the music we have back then, I really think that's a reflection of our current state.
Let me speak.
And
Let me
go
speak to
go
that
right ahead.
because that's an excuse that Mos Def gave, and I hear where it comes from. I get. Put it back. I get where he's coming from, so I don't want to totally shit on it at all because that there is truth. There is a lot of truth in what he said. But that's why this when we talk about music, we got to differentiate between what's out there for mass production and music, because the best music isn't what's being played mass wise. We're in an era where they completely control what's put out there. So when we talk about the music of today that's put out there, especially over the last 10, 20 years, we have to look at the people in control of the music and the people in control of distribution. They're the music that's out there in mass is because they decide to put it out there in mass. There's no other way around it. This is one of those things where, because us as a people, we in Black America, you can't name one time we've ever had good times. We've never had good times. Our best music, our brightest music comes out of our steepest oppression. When you listen to music of the 60s, Black people were going through hell in the 60s. But we've always been alchemists with our condition. When we were going through that hell of the 60s, we created music like My Girl. We created music like The Love I Lost in the 70s. We created music like we created the Supremes. That's what we created during our darkest hour. During the 50s, yeah, and there's always been a variation of music, because the blues has always been a part of our music too. You know what I mean? So when we talk about the downside, look, BB King got a song that says, a song called "Don't Answer the Door," where he's talking to his woman. He got a part in the song where he says, "Now if your mama want to come visit us, tell her I get home about the break of day, and that's too late to visit anybody, baby. So please tell her to stay away." That's BB King talking to his girl's mama. BB King got a song that says, that same song, "Don't Answer the Door. If you sick, don't call the doctor. You just suffer till I get home." Um, you got a song by Muddy Waters where he's talking about going to the bar to start a fight, and he gonna pop his pistol if things don't go right. He's talking about popping pistols in the 50s, man. We've always had that part in our music. We've had music that is talked about, because music is an imitation of life, and we've always had a variety. And we've always had music talking about the drug of the day. Make my funk the P funk. That's cocaine. That was George Clinton said, "I want my cocaine untouched, untapped." But he couldn't say make my cocaine the free cocaine. So it was make my funk the P funk. We got songs where where you had, Little Walter and Memphis Slim singing about hooch, and little Louis Armstrong sang about smoking weed. You know what I mean? Whatever, Jimi Hendrix talked about taking LSD. Whatever the drug of the day is, I can show you a Black artist that got a song about it. Got multiple songs about it. I got you. You show me shooting and stabbing and starting to fight. You point to the genre, I'll point to you the Black song talking about shooting and stabbing and starting to fight, because that's part of life too. But you balance that we've always had balance in our music. We've always had that, and we've had um, the great love music of Smokey Robinson and Fats Waller. Fats Waller got a song called "The Milkman," basically saying my girl is cheating on me with the milkman. You know what I mean? We've always had songs about people breaking up. The Manhattans got a song called "I Wish That You Were Mine." It's a beautiful song too. But the brother Gerald Austin, he's singing about, in that song, he's talking about dating his best friend's woman. I wonder what my lady would say if she knew I was meeting you every day. So we've always had that in our music. So we have to know that the music that's getting pushed to us today, the difference is there was always an openness to where the breadth of our music was put out, the good stuff and the bad stuff, and there was a wide range. Hell, we don't even want to get into white people's degeneracy in their music. There's a song. There's a genre called death metal, and there's a song called um, mother daughter fuck, where the dude is talking about fucking his mother and his daughter, and they're talking about raping and killing. Like this goes on in their music now. I mean, if you want to listen to some, go listen to outlaw country. You want to hear some gangster music? Listen to a genre called outlaw country, where they're talking about shooting up and bombing bars. So profanity and profaneness has always been in the music. The difference is in the past, the good stuff and the bad stuff got put out. Now it's only a few companies. See, back then you had Columbia, CBS, you had a variety of music companies. And so if this particular company wasn't fucking with black record labels, other ones were. R&B by 1945 had 30 record labels, and 9 of those labels were centered here in LA, California. I think 4 in Chicago, Memphis had another. And so you had this variety of record labels. You got 6 or 7 R&B labels in Memphis, another 4 or 5 in New York, another 4 or 5 in Chicago, 2 in Miami, 8 in LA. So if 2 or 3 labels, or if 20 labels are suppressing black music, it's another 20 that want black music. So all of our music got out. Now, Spotify, Apple, Sony, they control the levers. You know, you got to be, if you notice, everybody that goes number one is probably going to be distributed by Sony. You know what I mean? They're going to have some kind of a deal with Apple. These people control the levers. And so the music that goes to number one, we're not really even. I read something recently that was talking about, it was an article that came out that said 70% of music streamed now was created during the 70s. And that's so the children are going back to the 70s. Now you ain't listening to this new shit. The Billboard Top 200 accounts for less than 5% of all streams. So even the shit that's going number one, less than 5% of the people are fucking with it. It ain't really number one like it was in Michael Jackson's day when everybody had to walk their asses out to the record store and get the record. It ain't that no more. So when we have to always when they're putting these Cardi B's in our faces and these degenerate sorry ass artists that are putting out, people really ain't fucking with them like that. And the people who usually are white. The black kids now, they got all kind of local artists that they fucking with on YouTube, that they fucking with on Instagram. That's where the kids are. The kids are in some music that we never heard of these people, but they've been following that particular artist's YouTube for like 6, 7 years, and we don't know what they are. That artist has just as much, most of the time, more influence on your child than what's being played on the radio. Nobody listening to the radio no more. We got to remember that. Did anybody? I can't see anyone. Eve, if anyone else got their hand up,
No new
they,
hands up. No new hands up right now. But I was thinking about how our olders or elders sometimes give away the keys to the kingdom to post it in the Jumbotron when J-Lo did that Motown tribute thing. It was something that should have gotten her tomatoed, but it didn't.
but we got to ask ourselves: did we give up that because we don't own Motown anymore? You know, and we don't make the decisions at Motown. And I know that for that Motown thing, I know that there was one in Vegas that they had a while ago, and Smokey Robinson validated that, and that bothered me when I saw Smokey put his stamp of approval on that Motown, that all white Motown review they had in Vegas. And you do have that, but it's also a combination of two things. On halfway we give it up. On the other half, we don't really support a lot of our greats, so it puts our greats in these positions to where they got to kind of go where the people who are giving them support are going. And it's like if we as a people, if we support these greats, they would need to go to the other side, but we don't. Or in large part, and we do in some areas, but by and large, we don't support them enough. So, like for instance, sometimes you'll see like these artists, you'll see them working at with these white musicians and stuff like that. That's all the time because the black musicians don't call them. That's one thing I do give credit to Dr. Dre for and Death Row Records. The one reason why Death Row Records was so funky and the flavor was so good, the women singer background, those are the women from the Mary Jane Girls. I mean, they were Death Row was in the building where Solar Records used to be. Solar Records was a record company that produced Lakeside, Rolls Royce, a lot of your LA, The Whispers, a lot of those acts in the late 70s, Shalimar, they all came out of Solar Records. So when Death Row Records came around, Dr. Dre would call Roger Troutman to be, that was Roger Troutman that did California Love. They always called they would call George Clinton and Bootsy Collins and do music with them, and that's why that Death Row era of the early to mid '90s had such a timeless classic flavor. It's because the OGs were in the studio with those guys, but that was an anomaly. By and large, the newer artists don't really call the older artists to work with them. They all, they're not. Snoop revived Charlie Wilson's career. You know what I mean? But by and large, a lot of hip hop, they just left they left the other generation behind. So what are they gonna do if the Red Hot Chili Peppers are calling me? What am I gonna do? Say no? You know what I mean? If like Nile Rodgers been here. Why? Pharrell later worked, but that after Daft Punk, but Daft Punk called Nile Rodgers, and then finally Pharrell did, and it worked out. But Nile Rodgers been here. He not only did do them hits for Chic, he Like a Virgin, Madonna. That was Nile Rodgers that did the Coming to America soundtrack. Nile Rodgers been here. Like, why weren't the black artists of the 2000s working closer with Nile Rodgers? Why?
DeJuan, I think maybe they just would rather sample a beat versus actually make and have a conversation. That, the conversation aspect is missing from the youth. They don't they don't know how to talk to people. They know how to type things out. And it's easier to just buy a beat than it is to have a conversation with an artist about their stuff. And I don't want to ramble, but we have a new speaker. Tracy Cakes is on the stage.
Go ahead.
Hey everybody, what's up, DeJuan? It's Patrice.
What's up?
I just came in to say what's up and listening to the conversation.
Hold on, Westchester Patrice?
Yes.
Hey y'all, this is my high school homie in the house.
Hi everybody.
You ain't she be kicking in a while. I gotta have a barbecue again pretty soon and invite you over to the house. I miss you, Patrice.
I know I miss you and Isha. Y'all gotta open the doors some more. I be
Right, you're right.
Yeah, about I follow what you do, and I don't agree. Me and DeJuan, we to some conversations,
We
but
be fighting. Let them know we be fighting. We'll go ahead.
And we've seen each other grow, from when we were kids and growing up in the same environment. We have a lot of the same lived circumstances, but it just shows, we're different. Like, people see the world and view things differently. But what was sticking out to me when you were naming, all of our genres, our blues, our jazz, our funk, our disco, and what happened to our genres of music? I feel like we so sterilized down to hip hop, R&B, and some soul sometimes. What happened to our footprint in our genres of music, the music that we birthed and nurtured, and I think it's kind of leading into what you were just saying about it's not reaching back or not going into, our past, our bag. This is what has sustained us since the early 1900s. Like, what happened? Where did all the disconnect come from?
That's a great question. Let me answer that. I'm glad you asked that question. Thanks. Well, we've been allowing these people ever since we integrated educationally, with them. We've allowed them to lead us by the nose. I mean, we haven't had much. It's like whatever trend they put out, we've been more than willing to follow without question. going into like right now, like I was talking about earlier, you have black people now arguing over who has more Grammys and who sold more records. That's never a conversation that we should be having ever, because we should know better. We should know better than that. But we've allowed them to, since we've been integrated with our education. I think being integrated with the education system is going a long way into that, and the allowing them to teach us instead of us teaching ourselves. Because the minute they took music out, before when we taught ourselves, music was always going to be around in our schools, but they gave us literally when we started integrating into their school format in the 60s and the 70s, they literally gave us one generation with instruments, and they took them after that. They literally, we got one generation with instruments in school. Some, depending on where you live, maybe two. After that, instruments gone. So since music is in us, we're making music off whatever trend is getting put out there, because we're not learning the instruments. Um, Another thing when it comes to, you say what happened to funk, the thing is, all of our music is still alive. Funk is still here. Disco is still here. Disco is now just called EDM. Depending on where it's either EDM, or it could be called world beat. It could be called house. It could be called techno. You know what I mean? That's all disco. Um, Disco was just too, the vibration was too high and it was too black. Disco was bringing in, see the danger with disco, I'm not the biggest disco fan, because disco's fast and has that pulsative beat. Disco was bringing in, like, our music has always brought in outsiders to our music, but they've always had to whiten the music up. That's why Little Richard always said that he wanted to cross over to white folks, so he sped his music up because it needed faster. Well, disco was at the tempo; it was black music at the tempo that white folks already liked, so we didn't really have to change nothing for them to want to be a part of it. And what disco was doing was, it was had a certain frequency to it, to where it was bringing together multiple races of people at a level the country wasn't ready for. And y'all know me, I'm not into one of those "we are the world" kind of things. I do believe in, everybody got to hold their own thing down, but this, we got to tell the truth as to how it is. Disco was truly, truly, truly more so than even other forms of music, bringing people together, because funk, brought a segment of white folks over, but that shit was just too. Funk is just too. Nigga, that's too hard. That's too difficult. That's the funk. You can't fuck around with funk, and so, to be able to hold down a groove for 8 minutes, you know what I mean, and keep it that you ain't fucking. It's too slow for them. It's too slow for the rest of the world. Funk is exclusively for us, because we play between the beats. We dance between the beats. But disco gave the world, the people who aren't on our groove, it gave them a beat to dance to too. So this was a sound of music that came together on black terms. Usually, when black folks went over to white folks' music, we have to lose a little bit of our soul to do so. And that's not me just bullshitting. Let's just look at it. We all know that black dude that only date white women. That nigga corny. You know what I mean? It's very rare you get that you don't really see them dudes and black dudes that got a certain alpha, certain type of energy about them, that they, jumping across the race. Usually when they jump across the fence, you can sort of have one conversation with them and be like, oh, that makes sense. I understand why your ass is interracially married. We get it. We just like when we go to their environment, we lose a major piece of us. Disco was a time, and same thing with our music. When we cross our music over to them, we have to remove things to make our music white. We got to take out soul. We got to take out the funk. We got to speed it up. We got to take out the swing. We can't even swing the notes. We got to play more directly on top of the notes. We have to remove elements. We can't make it as layered. You can't have as much going on underneath, because you'll confuse them. So you got to take elements out in order to make it appealing to them. Disco wasn't like that. Disco, it could be a full on production, and you go listen to the song by Chic. What was it? Yowza, yowza, yowza. That's the what's the? I want to boogie with you. I forgot the name of that song, but y'all can just look up Yowza by Chic. That is so musically sophisticated. That is the highest level of musicianship, but it was in a disco format, so it was in a sound that everybody could come together, of all cultures, and dance to it authentically. That shit was too dangerous, so they had to destroy it on the surface. Now they didn't destroy the sound because the sound still existed and it still existed to this day. Most of your '80s pop music is disco. They just had to remove us from the face of it because we couldn't be the face of that. They could always other funk. They could always other the other kinds of music, but they couldn't other disco like that. So since they couldn't other disco, they had to destroy it. But disco still exists through EDM, through world beat, through Eurobeat, through dance, through dance music, through dance hall, because dance hall is also a derivative of disco. It's disco flavor flipped into an island groove. But dance hall is still a derivative of disco. Um, so we got to know that it still exists, and that's why I think it's upon us to keep having these conversations, keep talking about it. Because really, when we talk about all the other genre, all the old genres of music, um, we like it was the same musicians playing them all. Like it wasn't. It's not like it was a like these musicians were doing disco and those musicians were doing funk. You know what I mean? Like no, these were the same musicians. Like of course you had your funk bands, but like Funkadelic was just stubborn. Parliament Funkadelic, they refused to do disco. The more disco got popular, the more funky Funkadelic Parliament got. You know what I mean? But Earth and the Fire would have a disco song. Boogie Wonderland was one of their biggest hits. That was a disco. And when you look at the musicians behind it, Greg Fillinganes, a lot of your musicians, they will have. I remember talking to my father-in-law about this, about by being a session musician in the '60s before he got his became producer at Motown. He'd be like, okay, yeah, 11 a.m. You got a country western gig. You playing a country western because a lot of your country western, a lot of your rock and roll in the studio was black musicians. The band that you see on the record label, them talking about the white bands, the ones that you see. Okay, this is the Eagles or whatever. In that studio, most of the time was niggas. So back in the day, he'd be like, okay, 11 a.m. You got a country western recording at the Capitol building, and then 2 o'clock you got a folk song recording across the street at Columbia. Then at 5 o'clock, you got another session back over at Capitol that's gonna be playing rock and roll. At 8 o'clock that night, you got a Memphis blues section, and these will be the same. It will be the same musicians playing on a BB King album that was playing on a Fleetwood Mac album that was playing on a. That's what we don't oftentimes realize. Like I was talking to my father-in-law about music last week, and he was telling me about an album that he did with BB King. And he did the album with BB King the same year that he did an album with the Jackson 5. And that was the same year he did another album with Eddie Kendricks, using the same musicians. So the musicians behind all of these diversity of sounds that we're, because right now we sort of talk about these genres as if there's this spread of different sounds. No, all of those sounds literally came from the same people, the same individuals, same first and last name. You look at, you know what I mean? Like you look at, and that's how it's always been. And so we got to know that even though this song may be disco, that song may be blues, it was probably put together by the same person. Quincy Jones worked with Count Basie doing the most elevated jazz and Frank Sinatra, and he also worked with BB King. And then when he finished with BB King blues, we treat jazz and blues as if they're like this totally opposite thing. When Quincy Jones had major hits in the same year, working both genres at the same time, and then turned around and did a jazz album on his own, and then did a funk, then turned around and did the dude, which was funk. I mean, when we talk about these different genres, we gotta always remember we're literally talking about the same people. Whether we're talking about blues, country western, rock and roll, oftentimes either in the studio recording those songs was the same musician. Same with radio too. We know because I'm glad you brought that up, Patrice, again. But we're talking about the difference. See, black radio played a major part in our music. the black DJs around the world, around the country, and launching our music. We no longer have control over that. See, back in the day, even though a white person may own the radio signal, they still hire the black people as DJs. And you've always had white folks DJing black music. That's always been around too. But aren't you can tie a one-to-one connection between the success of R&B and the success of black radio and black radio stations. And you had your black radio DJs who curated, you know what I mean? And you had to bring some shit if you wanted to get played or some money. But most people didn't have money, so the music had to be good. It'd only be an artist or two. When it came to the whole payola thing, that was maybe an artist here or there that had the money to get their records played off more often. Most of the time, you're dealing with poor people, so they don't have the money to be played. So your shit had to be good, and then the people had to call in and say, "I like that song," and that's how you would get paid more, played more, and that was always the curation process for our music. Now the curation process, they're now conglomerates. The same people who own the radio station own own the distributor, the distribution, and they also own the play. Like, so, there's no accountability system between the people and the music now, and that's something else that we have to remember. And I don't know if anybody got their hands raised, Eve, but if somebody do,
Well, Draco had his hand up, but then he went back down to listener. I threw him a mic. Maybe he'll come back up. But no new hands. Patrice, that question she had about what happened to the music, and then you said that there was only one generation of the instruments being in school, and I think that that's important, but it just shows me that we didn't use school for that type of learning. So there's a disconnect somewhere. People who know how to play aren't teaching their nephews, nieces, sons, and daughters, and I don't know why that happened. Or
well,
maybe they thought, since you're learning it in school, I don't have to teach it to you, but they're not.
part
The
of it,
art programs suck.
part of it is that's. I'm glad you brought that up, Eve, because when people go ahead and get jobs, what I mean, what time do they have? And that's why when we had our own schools, we made music a part of our time, and then church. Church is also the other place. If you didn't learn it, you know what I mean. That's where the church has always been a proving ground for us musically, and we don't go to church like we used to. That's probably a good thing, but the downside of that is we don't pass down the musicianship like we used to because of it. And you're right, parents not teaching it, but also when you're under the oppressive system that we're under, we've been in this, man, it's culturally, we've been in survival mode. That's the why when it comes to why are we led by the nose? Why do we allow them to do that? Why do we just take whatever they give us? Well, that's an effect of trauma, and that's an effect of survivalism. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, when you're surviving, we all know how it is to live paycheck to paycheck. You keep saying you want to do this, you want to do that. Next day you look up, you're a decade older. That's just part of living in in this hellhole that we've been in. We've been responding to this environment by the people who put us into it. And that's why I think a lot of us getting our minds right culturally is what's going to be that's going to inoculate what's going on. You know what I mean? That's going to make that's going to put us back into a position where we have some level of control. But right now, since we've just been in positions to where really ever since we integrated, integration was one of the worst things that ever happened to us. See, we had some form of control over our environment before integration. They weren't passing us shit, but we knew we weren't going to get anything from them, so we had to take care of ourselves. So we had to educate ourselves. We had to teach ourselves, and then in order to pass time, we had our instruments. We had those were our toys. That's what we used to relieve ourselves after a long week of work. Now we integrated into their system. We don't have that no more. Go ahead, Eve.
Yeah, I think your point about the church was spot on. Since people don't go to church like that, that's how I started singing. Was in church in a choir from when I was a kid. I sang for 20 something years, in the choir. I've saw musicians learn their craft as I was learning singing. You know, the drummers, the piano players, you know, or people would bring, you know, other instruments into the church. And it's like that community learning. You know, all of us are learning together. We're all, you know, we're in our element here. And like you said, it's the proving ground. So if you're doing well, you're going to get hyped up and boosted up, and the church is going to come together and support you and, you know, keep telling you to keep going. Also, keep going. I've had people tell me don't ever stop singing, even when I was like, you know, I don't sing all like that. You know what I mean? But like the old folks in the church will make you feel like Whitney Houston. You know what I mean? And
Real
you know
talk.
what that feels like for a young person to have a whole community of people behind you to say, yes, you can. Keep going. Don't stop. Just, you know, sing for the Lord, baby, or whatever it was that push. And
Take
even if
your
you
time
didn't
now.
have
Take
it
your time.
from your parents, if you didn't have it from your grandparents or your immediate family, you had this extended family that was there, you know, 100%. As long as you was doing something positive, they was about it. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that, you know, as we dive deeper into like looking at what built our sound as Black Americans and all the pieces and the layers that go into making that sound. It's not just one thing or another. It's all of it. It's the church. It's, you know, you know, and even families passing them, you know, where are the big groups of families that are singing and playing music together? Like I was looking at um the Ferrises and the Gauchers here in LA, you know, like Inglewood Sir and D Smoke and
Yeah,
Tiffany
that's
Gaucher. They're all brothers and cousins, and their mom Jackie is a beautiful singer. They got an uncle who was a ridiculous bass player for Prince and Michael Jackson and all Andre Crouch and all
Bobby,
the gospel, you know, like they
Andre.
are like, yeah, Andre, like yes, they are like this musically royal family, like everybody, and
You
it's
brought
like
up a good point. I want to say something to that real quick. Because he rock in the church, like the Burrell family. You know what the what's her name? She's in trouble right now because she said what's her name? Um
Kim,
Kim Burrell. You
Kim
know,
Burrell
but that family
with her
they're here in
glasses.
LA. Like one of my guys, I'm going back to what we talking about church. The live music scene here in LA, the people who are really the catalyst behind the live music scene in LA, again, church. Charlie Burrell, he's out here, and I love Charlie because Charlie's one of the lesser known Burrells, but he's done like a lot of work with Raphael Sadiq over the last 20 years. Um, his whole crew, but they came out of the church. J-Mo, Jairus Mosey. Those of you who follow me on Spotify and Mixcloud and my YouTube, y'all saw my interview with Jairus Mosey. He came out of the church. He was playing in church. And when he was playing in church, who was looking up to him as a young child in church? Steve Lacy from that group, The Internet. Steve Lacy grew up in Jerry Mo's church, and J Mo, as a teenager, taught Steve Lacy how to play the guitar, and that developed into the group The Internet. And Steve Lacy starting to. It's so dope to see Steve Lacy blowing up. But again, that came out of church. Jairus Mosey played the guitar in church, and from there, he started playing Snoop. You know, he started playing on the road with Snoop. Then Prince discovered him, and as a teenager, Prince used to pick J Mo up from high school in a limo and take him to his house in Beverly Hills, and they be jamming out all night, and J Mo will be coming home like at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, or sometimes not going home at all, going directly from jam session with Prince back to Long Beach Poly High School. But again, J Mo developed his chops in church. Kamasi Washington, the number one, the premier saxophonist in the world right now. He's the person playing saxophone on anything Kendrick Lamar, especially on that To Pimp a Butterfly album. He's all over it. But that's Kamasi Washington, Hamilton High School. He comes out of church. He used to play. I used to play the drums in my church, and his uncle was the organ player at my church. So Kamasi and his father Ricky, who's also in his band, every now and again they come and sit in at my church. So I remember playing with him as a teenager. Again, that's church connection. Those musicians behind Nipsey, when Nipsey went live, like most of the music was programmed, but when he had a live sound, that was the whole Terrace Martin, uh, Kamasi, Crenshaw, and 43rd, because Crenshaw and 43rd, that's where the Barbara Morrison Pavilion was in the World Stage Theater, and that was a cultivating ground here in L.A. for musicians. But those musicians started before they even got to the Lulu Washington Dance Theater, and before they even got to the Barbara Morrison Pavilion, they were playing in church on Sunday. When I talked to my father-in-law about why when he got that deal with Motown, he said part of the reason why he got that deal with Motown to produce and to arrange for Motown was because Motown, he said in the '60s, the church was really becoming a big thing. Doo-wop was fading away, and doo-wop was really big in the late '50s, early '60s. But as you get into the mid '60s, the church is coming back into rhythm and blues, and they want more of that gospel feel. So since he produced music for gospel artists and came out of the church, again, he started playing music in church when he was 5, 4. You know what I mean? And church is where he got the encouragement. He was the talk of the town in Gaston, Alabama, because he was the little Carmichael kid that could play the piano in church. I started playing the drums in church when I was 13, and she was talking about the encouragement you get. I remember being in rehearsal, I used to get to rehearsal an hour early to practice before choir rehearsal. And I remember some of the ladies coming through, the joy greeters and the people who worked in the church. And I'm over here practicing, and they come in, "Ooh, DeWan, you getting so much better. You making them drums talk, boy." Man, as a 14-year-old boy, that felt good. And then the men of the church, right on, young fella. Like one of my biggest encouragements when I was a teenager was Pastor Johnson. Pastor Johnson was one of the pastors in our Zoe Association, and his daughters, mind you, one of his daughters, they had a group called JS. R. Kelly put them out back in the '90s. It was 3 of them, but in the group it only ended up being 2 of them. But one of his daughters married Philip Beatty from Earth and Fire, lead singer. The other daughter married Ronald Isley, and she's still married to Ronald Isley today. They used to sing in my church when we were kids, up until their dad ended up getting his own church. But when I was a teenager, their father, Pastor Johnson, when I would play at his church, play at other churches, he always pulled me to the side. And you know, when you're a child growing up in church, what the pastor say mean the world to you. You know what I mean? And pastor be like, "Yo, young man, you just got to stick with it. I remember when you started, you couldn't keep time that well, and then you got better. Now, shit, you." And so I'm 16 hearing this from Pastor Johnson. You know what I mean? My music director at my church was Mark Scarborough. His father, Skip Scarborough. So those of you listen to me regularly, I tell you, I talk about him all the time. You know, he wrote "Don't Ask My Neighbor by the Emotions," "Giving You the Best That I Got" by Anita Baker, and "Love's Holiday," and by Earth and Fire, and "Love Ballad" by LTD. He's written so many classic songs. But when I was 15, and I was playing the drums we had a men's retreat, and I was a boy, and I was playing with the for the men's retreat up in the mountains. And Mr. Skip Scarborough came down, legendary music writer, and he heard me play and he gave me encouraging words. I wouldn't have got that outside the church. One of our musicians in my church used to play the trumpet for Earth and Fire. So I used to be with him at rehearsal, and I was 16, 17 years old. And every Thursday at rehearsal, he'd tell me stories about touring with Earth and Fire. I wouldn't have got that without the church. I got some I gotta say, man, that even though I be, cracking jokes, church sometimes because I'm an asshole. I like cracking jokes. I gotta say, I wouldn't be the musician I am without church. I wouldn't be the music historian I am without church, because a lot of my stories I have you can't find in a book. I was just a young kid in church, and in churches where all the people who did do music when they weren't on tour, or if they didn't do it full time anymore because the industry changed, they all played in church. So if you played in church in LA, like I did, and you would jump around the different churches and play, you got to meet the lady earlier. I'm sorry to get to see her name because I can't see the chat room, but she mentioned the Goucher family. I got to play the drums with different members of the Goucher family because I'd be playing. It'd be a compilation choir event somewhere at Bishop Omer's church. And so I got to sit in with Andrew Goucher. But Andrew Goucher was one of Prince's house. So I got to hear Prince stories from Andrew Goucher when I was 20 years old. And I got to play with the man who played with the man. The bass player in my church growing up used to play bass behind Stevie Wonder. And so these are the environments that our music used to get cultivated in. And that's why I'm not a proponent of getting rid of the church. I'm a proponent of fixing the church because the church is organization. You don't throw away something that's that organizationally sound. Now we got to find a way, and it's a different topic. We may do a different Twitter space about that of what we can do to fix how the church is run because the church does need to change and start do a better job of meeting the needs of the people today, like it once did. But even with that being said, man, the relationship between church and our music, you can't separate it. Is anybody else got their hand up?
Yeah, we got Sincere who just came to the stage. Peace to you.
Oh yeah, sincere man. Go ahead, brother.
Nah, peace, man. My app wasn't working, so I was just pushing every button trying to get it to work. But I wasn't trying to speak, man. I'm just here to soak up the game.
Okay, for sure.
Oh, and that was me, Dwan. I was the lady.
Oh,
Reese.
oh, you
I was the
know
lady
you
who
sound
mentioned
weird
the
on Twitter
cliche.
Space. I'm used to your real life voice.
I know. I don't know. I don't know because it's like weird. Like the dude who just came in, his sound was all distorted for me. I don't know if it's like the
You're
app is
clear.
glitching.
No, you're clear. It's just I'm used to your human. When was the last time we kicked it? About a year ago now, something like that.
Something like that.
It's been a
I
minute.
think
I'm
it was
used
a
to your.
fight. Was it a? It was a fight. You had a fight party.
Oh yeah, I had that fight party. That was the thing. My plan was to have another fight party with Earl Spence versus Terrence Crawford, but that fight didn't happen. I was gonna do a barbecue and invite you and everybody over. But the next big fight, I'm gonna do one. I got you.
Oh yeah. But it's. I mean, my dad's voice is on Aretha Franklin's recording that she did in L.A. at church of. Oh shoot, what's the name of the? They did a whole
That was
documentary.
at James Cleveland's church.
Right. My dad is in the footage
Oh,
of that. You know what I'm saying? Like you can hear him on the record, like hooping and hollering, like getting happy in the crowd. Like Tommy Smith went to my church. Like I was, sitting with and learning from a, a black Olympian who raised his fist when nobody else would. Like the church is so connectional. It's a thread that runs through, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to follow Christ and all of that. Like I know everybody got their own situation and finding their own spirituality, and it may not be that linear, but just the community, the collective of it, the resource building and gathering is like second to none. I don't know what else we have as a community that brings people together like the church outside of music, which comes out of the church. So that's really interesting. I would love to sit in on that conversation if
yeah.
get into that.
I'll make sure whenever I do we do a space about that, I'll make sure I text you because when it comes down to it, when it comes to the church, we we all remember because people always say, "Oh, the church is given to you during slavery." Nah, because slavery. No, it wasn't. Black people actually weren't allowed to be in church in the 1600s and mostly throughout the 1700s. Them white folks weren't trying to give up no kind of spiritual, no kind of hope to us at all. The church ended up coming through them as we develop. It's a book by J.A. Rogers called The Negro Church. I encourage everybody to read that book for more because that kind of set a lot of our perceptions of the church straight. A lot of our perceptions of the church and how it comes from and its connections to church slavery are just off. That book by J.A. Rogers will help you more in the history of the AME Church and all that stuff. When the AME Church was founded, it was a resource center. It was a place where black people could learn. The church is where we learn masonry. That's where we weren't. That's where we learned iron working and bricklaying, and that's where we learned how to cut wood. And a lot of our skills were passed down to us through the church. And the first AME church was a major part of that. First AME church was a service. It was a school. It was the place where the community coalesced and got together. When someone new would come to town, it was the first AME church that would build you a house. You bring whatever skill set you have, and the rest of the brothers from the church are going to help you build that house. And a lot of the women from the church are going to help. Hey, do you need pot? Do you need this? Do you need that? And the church was a gathering place. And when someone new came around to church, we can come together and construct something and do it as a community. And the only thing you need to do was to pay it forward. When the next person moved to town, you be part of the crew that helps build them a house. And that's what the first AME church used to facilitate. It used to be an organization that met the needs of the people. And so we have to understand that. And it was the same thing when it came musically. Music is where messages were passed down and passed around through the church. The church was the grapevine. And we had this structure. It's gotten corrupted because of the money when you're dealing with, especially when you're dealing with what was that? It was already bad. It started getting bad in the 60s and the 70s. But really, when George Bush did this legislation in 2000, 2001, excuse me if I forget the exact name. But it was it wasn't, it was called I forgot the name of it. But basically, it was faith-based initiatives. George Bush, remember those around the time of 9/11, he had these policies called faith-based initiatives. Basically, what that was it put a lot of your community organizing, a lot of your structures that's built around like bringing aid to the community instead of the government doing it. They gave the churches money to do it, and that's why out of nowhere you start to see the mega rise of super churches, where it used to be a pretty big church that had a pretty big sanctuary. You went from big church in the sanctuary to churches. By the time you get to the 2000s, churches are now buying former basketball stadiums. Joel Osteen bought the Summit in Houston, where the Rockets used to play. Bishop Omer bought the Great Western Forum here in LA, where the Lakers used to play. And you start seeing that. Well, all that came around the same time as the faith-based initiatives, guaranteed money from the government. So our church system has been compromised, and in reaction, a lot of us have left the church. But we also got to know that just because it's been compromised doesn't mean it can't be cleaned up, you know? And so it can be cleaned up, and we can be the ones that clean it up for those that want to get back into it. Me personally, I ain't really fucking with church like that, but for those who are in it, you know what I mean? I think it's upon the people who are in it to clean it up and to get these pastors up out of there that are using it to pimp the people and push the ones that are out there who have a mindset of community, because can't nothing last that long unless it has some level of good for us. And you don't dump that level of organization just because the players have gotten corrupt. Got to get up in there and clean that shit out. Like, if I ever decide to go back to church, I seriously doubt it. Seriously doubt it. But it would be to clean up whatever was going wrong. But, for those of you in it, you know what I mean? You don't have to just take what they give you. You know what I mean? You got to be the ones that clean it up. And because, again, it's so important to our music and the development and the cultivation of. I remember when I was a kid, I was talking to one of our bass player at church. This is a different bass player, and he used to play like with Confunction and Lakeside. He played with a lot of stuff, a lot of those bands. And he always had a joke. People always say where the funk went. The funk went to the church, and that's how he would say it every time. The funk, like he was talking about, like he played in them funk bands in the '70s, and by the time you get to the '90s and the 2000s, funk's not around anymore. So that was like his running joke. People want to know where the funk went. The funk went to the church. And that's just how it is. And we still got to make sure that, if you're going to be in that organization, get the most out of it. Eve, I see you had your hand up. I think, was that you? Did you have your hand up? Or
No, I didn't have my hand up. Did Sincere
uh,
say he just couldn't hear that space was giving him issues? Because I've been getting cut out for a little bit.
now, Sincere said that he was just he was trying to he was trying to playing with his phone and then hit the request by accident. But yeah.
Yeah,
The
I
church
couldn't hear at
definitely.
first, but I'm good. You can take me down.
No, go ahead now. If you want to, I want you. If you got something to say, brother.
Oh no, no, I'm good. I'm just saying, like, at first I couldn't hear y'all, but everything is working now. So if you want to take me down out of the speaker section, I'm good.
No, you ain't got. If you want to say up there, that's fine. But I'm saying, but if you want to say something, man, I know you're a musician. I would love to hear what you got to say, brother.
What do you play, Sincere? Are you a producer musician or are you an instrumentalist musician? Are you a
No,
write beats?
I'm a MC. I'm a MC. I'm a songwriter. But I'm just a student of the game, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm a student of the game, and that's the reason why I wanted to come into the space. I got here a little bit late. You know what I'm saying? I'm hearing you talking about some of your experiences in the church and some of the people, some of the legends that you were, able to study at the feet of. And I'm just here to soak it all up, man.
Okay, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, because you know that's because like as a kid, it's just life. You know what I mean? I thought, looking back, it's like, yo, I got to really ask questions from some real movers and shakers that really made things pop during America's greatest era of music. That is the 1960s and 70s. And you get a totally different viewpoint of it. And the same thing earlier when I was talking about the musicians being the same musicians. Look, we could take it back even further. If y'all go back and listen to my interview with Mr. Bobby Rush, you'll hear him talk about it. Man, on those tours that they had, you on the same tour, on the same show, on a general night in on the Chitlin circuit in rural Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, it would be Moms Mabley, Pig Meat Markham, Little Walter, Muddy Waters, and these are people who, when they finally got discovered in the 50s and put on chess records and distributed to the world, these Etta James, these people changed the world. And these same white folks that like to rank musicians and rank who's the top 40, who's this genre versus that genre. We dealing with Pig Meat Markham. Okay, he had one of the first very popular rap songs, but he was also a comedian. You had Moms Mabley, who was a great singer, but she was most noted for comedy. Then you have Little Walter, the greatest harmonica player in music history. Then you have Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters is the definitive definition of rock of heavy metal music. Heavy metal is the sound of muddy waters, while rock and roll, a lot of times, is the sound of Howlin' Wolf. Another person who will be on the same label. I mean, these sounds that have gone in. I mean, the people who were the foundations of heavy metal, rock and roll, the blues, stand up comedy were literally the same people, and they will kind of flip around different genres. Muddy, even though he was the foundation for heavy metal, he will bust out into a country western groove so fast, and then bust out into a Mississippi blues groove so fast. These are literally the same people that will be on the same shows. But when you listen to Billboard magazine or Rolling Stone magazine or other cultures talk about it, they talk about the blues and country western and stand-up comedy as if these are three totally different genres. When no, the architects of all of them were literally the same people. We got to know that. We,
Yeah, the war. I always say that the genres are really for the marketers and the promoters. It's not really for us. Like music is music. There's only two kinds of music. You got good music and you got bad music. That's it. The rest of it, what I'm saying? That's why I love the piece that you did with the foundational Black American tree, just showing how it all strings together and one thing was born from another thing. You know what I'm saying? It's really just one thing and we just create different sounds with it. We manipulate the sounds, to go with whatever the culture is and the time frame that we're in and the geographical location that we're in. You know what I'm saying? Just based on that. But really, all of these different genres, that's just for the labels to figure out how to sell it and who they're gonna sell it to.
that's really all it is, bro. That's really all it is, and that's why we can't get caught up in that stuff. You know what I mean? That's why we can't. and and so we gotta know that. We gotta know that, this is, and plus on top of that, these are folks that don't have the mental enzymes. Oh, we got Star in the room. What's up, Star? I see you over there posting in the jumbotron. I'm just now seeing the jumbotron. Star Nicole, I didn't know y'all was in here. Because again, I can't see shit. Outside of, I see Eve. I see, now I only see Eve. So I hope it's more than two people up in here. Well, anyway, um, because if it was two people in here, I'd be depressed. Like, goddamn, I'm that goddamn boring. Shit.
He's
Anyway,
having a sweetie moment, y'all. Speaking of sweetie.
um, you a fool. Yeah. So
Oh, that was sad. That's sad. That was so sad. Ooh,
She
ooh.
needs to fire everybody. I don't know who allowed that type of publicity to happen, but nobody's on your side. That's how you know you don't have no friends.
You by
That right
yourself.
there.
You were by yourself.
mm-hmm.
Why you gonna mess around and be Reverend Dr. Brown? You keep messing around.
Hey, I do
Running
got.
from your calling.
Hey, it's funny too. Isha said that a few times. She was like, "You gonna watch? You gonna open up a church? Watch!" Like, I'm like, shit. Yeah, I'll open up a church if I can smoke a blunt while I'm preaching. I might. You know what I mean? I might. I'll open up. I'll open up a church of mushroom intake.
Hey, I'll be there front
The
row.
Church
I'll
of
be the president of
Siloam.
the missionary board. Instead of communion wafers, you get you a little micro dose. We gonna put it together. We gonna put it together for real.
I tell people all the time because I be forgetting because like, look, y'all, so every now and again I'll get a new person on my YouTube and they're like, "You smoking a blunt?" Look, I tell people all the time, look, I am a true West Coast hippie. I'm born and raised in LA. My parents are born and raised in LA. My grandparents are in LA. Shit, I'm a hippie to the soul. God damn it. I am a weed smoking, mushroom meditating, wine drinking, hippie ass hood Crenshaw nigga. And if I ever open up a church, man, the communion is gonna be communion blunts, puff and pass. And then we're gonna chase it with a shot of, I don't know, we have like real wine, not that communion wine. We're gonna have goddamn shot of Pinot Noir with matching blunts if I ever open up a church. Um,
He
it's like,
said no communion wine. Sincere, you had something?
Yeah, Dewar, did you talk about Shansia's comment that Bob Marley was bigger than Michael Jackson?
yeah, we open up talking about that, man, because it's like, what I was saying was, for those of you who are newer in here, wasn't here at the beginning, I'll go over that point briefly, so I don't bore the ears of those who were. But briefly, what I said was that environment was created out of us as black people always fighting. Oh, who's the king of R&B? My top 10 versus your top 10. Your top 10 ain't shit because they didn't sell this many albums. Our music talk for the last 20, 25 years amongst ourselves has been deplorable. I mean, I give black people, black Americans, I give us a grade D minus, fail plus when it comes to how we've communicated our music. It ain't been nothing but a top 10 argument, nothing but a shitting on one artist to promote the next artist, bullshit ass conversation that we've been having over the last 20 years, 25 years. And it's funny, we have all these damn ranking conversations when our music is in the worst state it's ever been. Shouldn't nobody that's been creating music over the 25 years be mentioned with anybody from the 70s, let alone the 60s, if you're going to tell the whole truth. But we've had these deplorable conversations amongst ourselves. And so since we've been having these shitty conversations, shitting on our greats, it's opened the door for these other people to come throwing their greats up in there. You know what I mean? Well, and I see the deductive reasoning. She's thinking, well, since Bob Marley's the greatest reggae artist of all time, I can go ahead and compare him to the greatest pop artist of all time, Michael Jackson. When truth is, Bob Marley has to get past, like Bob Marley, he got to get past Stevie Wonder. He got to get past Ray Charles. He got to get past Count Basie. I mean, as far as worldwide influence, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis. I'm talking about these are people who created shit that the world's still playing and still trying to sound like. I can't. I'm not. I definitely can't put Bob Marley on Earth and Fire's level. He's not on George Clinton's level of influence. He's not on. You know what I mean? We got a lot of people to talk about amongst our family. Marvin Gaye, Teddy Pendergrass. These are all people who had uh, major worldwide. Marvin Gaye still have a worldwide impact. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You're going to hear a Marvin Gaye song if you go get yourself in the taxi cab anywhere in the world, you're most likely to hear a Marvin Gaye song before you hear a Bob Marley song. Let's just tell the truth. You know what I mean? But since we don't really elevate our greats and we spend most of our time having these top 10 arguments, it opens the door for these ungrateful bastards to come and throw their people up in there. So we got to fix our conversation and we got to check them and let them know, hey, like the next time a black person comes trying to compare Beyonce and say Beyonce's the queen, like, no, you better, we know she's not the queen. She's one of many, but we're not going to act like Diana Ross didn't change the world for black women forever. Black Diana Ross is the first time a black woman was able to be seen as a class act across the world. Not to say that they weren't classy black women, but they didn't put Dorothy Dandridge in that light. They didn't put Ethel Waters in that light. They didn't put Billie Holiday in that light. You know what I mean? Diana Ross was the first black woman that they allowed to just truly be elegantly beautiful and classy. And this happened during the 60s, during our lowest point, going back to a point someone else earlier made about what Mos Def said, when Mos Def was talking about, well, it's reflection of the times. Well, at the time, Diana Ross became the standard of beauty and the standard of grace, class, and elegance around the world. Black people were getting shot down by water hoses and beat up on bridges and chewed on by dogs. So we got to know that, you know what I mean? Aretha Franklin, like we can't be having these conversations. You be talking. How many times are you talking music, and you listening to uh, say you listening to an old school song, you listening to Zapp and Roger. Just here comes somebody saying, "Who would you take, Zapp and Roger or the Gap Band?" Nigga, I'm gonna take both because Computer Love is gonna be off in 3 minutes, and 3 minutes from now I'm gonna play the Gap Band. Why the fuck are we arguing? But we had those bonehead ass conversations. You talking about one artist, and as soon as you talk about one artist, oh, what about that artist? Who's better? As long as we keep having those stupid ass conversations, these people like her that came out talking about some Bob Marley's better than Michael Jackson, it's opening the door. So we got to clean up how we talk about our musicians, and we got to talk about our musicians and our greats in a lineage format as a pantheon of greatness, not one being greater than the other. When I talk about great females, the great influential female singers of all time, I have I have one lane that's influential and a different lane for voice, because Diana Ross, she's on that top level when it comes to influence, but when it comes to vocals, she's down on the second and third level, because vocally Aretha Franklin's on the top, and she's on the top as far as influence. Beyonce vocally, she's ahead. Vocally, she has more range than Diana Ross, but you can't put her on the Shaka Khan or Aretha or Whitney Houston level vocally. But influence, you got to put her ahead of. So you have different lineages. Like if I'm gonna do a line of influential women, I'm gonna put Ethel Waters on that lineage. I'm gonna put Dorothy Dandridge on that lineage. Diana Ross, Beyonce, Whitney Houston. These are all women that just had just a phenomenal cultural impact. But if we're talking about music and quality of voice and range and pitch and tone, then on that again, we're not ranking who's the best, but we have tiers. The great vocalists that had the range. You're talking about Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith. You're talking about Aretha, Whitney Houston's back on that list. Now you got to throw Stephanie Mills up in there. You got to throw, you got to throw these different voices, and we can have a good discussion over who our favorite vocalist is, or who's the person that had the most influence over us, and we can have a fun, healthy debate over that. But all that talk about, man, my favorite artist is better than your favorite artist because they got 16 Grammys and your artist got 1 Grammy. We gotta leave that bonehead shit to the birds, man, because those stupid ass conversations open up the doors for these people who their number one is somewhere down on our third tier. They go throwing like these people that want to go throw Eminem at the top. They only put him up there because I saw he got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Only happened because he's white. Eminem skill wise, he's a third tier rapper. You know what I mean? You're gonna be, if Eminem was black, he wouldn't be half as good as Ludacris. You know what I mean? But because he's white, niggas like to automatically put him on the top because he stands out. But again, that only happens when you have an environment where you're always looking for the best or the top instead of just enjoying the fucking music.
Because I'm saying, like, music is so subjective. Like, I had a whole Bob Marley phase, like a whole,
Me
like,
too.
that's why I was like, wait, what's going on? What's going on with Bob? Wait, why he ain't great? And is he black? Is he not black? We're not counting him amongst ours, but I know that's a different conversation. But I I think some artists are just more influential for certain people. Some people really, really resonate with Tupac. Tupac is the penultimate for them because of, whatever they were going through in their lives, and it just resonated, and that's just how it is. Or you're from LA, or you're from a certain, culture. That's why in New York it could be Biggie, or somebody else over there, Big Daddy Kane, or whoever. It's because of your particular experience. Too subjective to come up with this one person is the greatest of all time. I mean, because there's some people who fuck with Michael Jackson, there's some people who don't. I met someone from Minneapolis last night who said they didn't fuck with Prince, and I was like, what do you mean? How are you a music? I was at a Ninth Wonder show at downtown at the Blue what's it called, the Grand Star Jazz Club.
Hold
Ninth
on.
One.
Night Wonder was out here?
Yes, last night, bro.
And you know what's crazy? Because this coming Thursday, Kamasi, they're doing a dinner party album. I don't know if you're going, Patrice, but it's Kamasi, Terrace Martin. And I was like wondering why ain't Ninth Wonder on that show? Because dinner party was Ninth Wonder, Kamasi, Terrace Martin, and Robert Glasper. Now
Mm-hmm.
Robert Glasper, Terrace Martin, and they're all going to be together, but Ninth Wonder won't be there.
Well, I don't know if he had like something else going on, or maybe he's gonna try to slide in and do something on the side. But yeah, he was in LA last night and he did a whole show. If y'all in LA and you
But
haven't.
hold on, Patrice.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you damn near cuss me out for not letting you know about the shows this past summer at the Bowl?
I'm sorry.
Huh?
I'm gonna send you the stuff. Well, I didn't. You don't. Do you Boombox LA? If you guys don't, if you're in LA and you want some live hip hop, just like DJs, it is downtown LA at the Grand Star Jazz Club. I think every first Saturday of the month.
Gosh.
I have seen. Oh shoot. Um, Shoot, what's that dude's name? Thundercat Bass.
Oh hell yeah,
Um,
Thundercat! I love Thundercat. I would have thought, man, shit, I would have been there.
oh shoot,
Remember we saw Thundercat at the Anderson .Paak
Pete
concert?
Rock. I've seen Pete Rock there.
And
I've seen like a whole. So everybody, get on their mailing list. And Dwan, I'm sorry from the bottom of my heart. We need to be better friends, and
hey,
I'm gonna take accountability um for my failing.
I still have fun when you kicked it with me and Ish at the Anderson .Paak concert. That
That
shit.
shit was dope. And the thing is, I wasn't hugely into Anderson all like that. Like, I had dabbled in his music here and there. When I tell you that show was transformational when it comes to the music that I listened to, um, Thundercat, like my son Dallas, he's 15. He turned 15 the other day.
Yo,
What?
getting
Right? Crazy. What?
yo.
So his musical tastes are kind of directly tied into what I listen to. But he's also one of these kids that are on YouTube and on, SoundCloud, and finding their own artists. Like these kids, he'll show me somebody. He's like, "Oh, mom, you got to listen to this. This person, he produces his own music and does his own vocals and does his own blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Who is this kid? I have no idea." And he's from like somewhere in the Midwest, like you've never heard of before. But it just really, music is transformative. I mean, we got to get the culture back. I don't know who we got to fight. Do we have to link arms and march across a bridge and do what they did to disco and start burning people's CDs in the village square? Like, what do we have to do?
Uh,
Why? What, what
Wait,
do we
hold
have
on,
to
hold
do?
on. Somebody just posted Corey Henry's show.
I did that about an hour ago, Dwan. I don't know why your Twitter is hating on you so hard.
Yeah, I did not. I'm so glad you posted this because it says December 16th. I'm going because I had tickets to see Corey Henry last month, 2 months ago, and because what happened was his show was from this past March, and they postponed it until last month, and I forgot they postponed it, and I actually ended up playing the drums that night, and that was that night that Tashina came down and sang with me while I was on the drums, but I didn't know I had tickets to see Corey Henry, and I missed the damn show, just lost my damn money, so I'm like, if you ever he posted it in the Jumbotron. If you ever see Corey Henry, come to your town, buy a ticket, buy two, and go. Because his music sounds good on CD, it sounds good in your speakers, but his music when you're live is transformative. That brother got the soul of, I mean, because he plays the organ, and he's been playing the organ in church since he was 3. So imagine how much soul that brother got. And Patrice, you said something really good. How do we get it back? This is how we get it back. Having these discussions and like the grapevine, passing this because it's passing the information down, the music down in our own homes, and knowing that the kids are actually they don't even know they're doing this consciously, it's subconsciously, but they're doing the right thing. The young generation has totally detached from the machine.
The kids are all right. I'm gonna let y'all know this right now. The
Huh?
kids are all right. It was a little hit or miss. I thought we was going down with the shit, but I have a
Yeah,
real love for this generation of kids that are coming up. You
they
know,
have totally detached from the machine. So they're getting their music through other means and they're finding good artists. I look at that young man out of Oakland, La Russell. I'm so proud of him. La Russell got his shit cracking on Instagram. He owns his own app that distributes his own tickets. He throws his own shows. All he does is rent out the venue and says, "Get the fuck out of my way." He has his mom, his dad prints all of his merch. His mom organizes the tours and the shows. His sister and his family does the accounting. And this young man, when he released something, he's going to move thousands of units. And it's all done in house with his own family. A lot of this younger generation is like, F the system. We are doing it this way. When I look at how Terrace Martin, see, Patrice, that whole crew with Terrace Martin, Thundercat, Kamasi, they blew up when in 2012 they pulled their money together and recorded their own album. They made their own albums. They said they took 30 days of studio time and they all played as musicians on each other's album. And they all so the whole Terrace Martin, that
and that's the throwback. That's the
yeah.
throwback. That is exactly what you just said about musicians going around to different labels, different artists, and they were all shedding together. They're all on each other's records. They're all. That's what. That is the key. And the masses, us people who have the social currency and have the currency, got to buy into it. We
Uh-huh.
have to support that instead of the easy bake style that we get, this prepackaged, hyper sexualized, you know, weird music that we got going on right now. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't, I listen to a lot of things. I have a wide palette. I listen to the ratchet and the righteous. But it's like you have to be able to prioritize. And what are you really giving your money towards? Whose shows are you going to? Who are you showing love for? Whose music are you sharing? Like the social currency is priceless right now. If somebody goes viral, the chicken salad lady who said it's a chicken salad, she's a spokesperson for something. All she said was it's a chicken salad. And the people went nuts for no reason. And now she's like a spokesperson for Weight Watchers. Social currency is
Look,
like
look. Do you remember
$1
James?
trillion.
Do you remember James, the Patty Pie guy, when he went to West? He went to Westchester with us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
went,
I know him now.
yeah,
I
you know him
know.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ended up leaving. But with James, I remember James. He just went on YouTube and sang a song about Patty LaBelle's pies, the Patty
Mm-hmm.
Pie.
Patty pies.
And look at what happened. But do you remember going to see James? Did you ever go to R&B Live when I was around, like 10 years ago?
Probably not. I was in the
No,
trenches.
Dallas.
I
Dallas.
was in the trenches of motherhood. I don't think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wasn't outside. I wasn't
Yeah,
outside.
you said Dallas is 15, so yeah, that was on the
Yeah.
that was during the prime of R&B Live. R&B Live, for those you don't know, that was it sounds like a little bit about the thing you went to with Ninth Wonder, but R&B Live was something that would go down every Tuesday, and they had a house band, and they would have different singers go up, and R&B Live was so popular, Prince would come down there. I mean, one time Prince did a show at Staples Center, and after a show at Staples Center, he went to R&B Live and got on guitar and played a set. Like Stevie Wonder would come down and play R&B Live. Like major acts, if they were in LA doing something, they would come down and sing or play or sit in with the house band. But they would introduce a lot of your singers had to come to. Or I remember Usher did a set of R&B Live. You know what I mean? Erykah Badu did a set of R&B Live. That was a true cultivating proving ground. That was a cultural thing here in LA that was extremely popular. I think the only reason why it stopped is because like the promoters fell out with the venue, and then it was some business kind of underhand stuff. But it goes to show that we've always had a market for that kind of music, and that market still exists. It's still around. We still love R&B as a people. We just don't know where to look. I always often find whenever people come in contact with my show, Incense and Ashtrays, and we talk music, and I introduce them to a current R&B artist, they fall in love with that artist because they never knew that artist existed. You know what I mean? But once they find out that artist existed, it ends up becoming a thing. It's just so it's like it's still there. We still want to be there, but we just don't know it's there. That's what the whole project is about. But I'm about to get up out of here, y'all. Um,
Oh, my bad. It was Battle Cat. I saw. Yeah,
Battle Cat.
it was Battle Cat, which is it's ridiculous.
That's even more ridiculous.
Every every first Saturday of the month, Boombox LA is a little tiny venue. It gets hot and sweaty, but I literally saw Pete Rock's fingers on all the knobs and the buttons and the things from like 5 to 6 inches away.
Uh-huh.
Like what?
Yeah,
It's amazing. So live music, I think that's where we can start. If they can't stand up live or do they shit live, mm-mm.
it ain't no good. Like
Mm-mm.
Battle Cat, because Battle Cat is Kamashi's DJ.
Oh, dope.
Like when Kamasi's on stage, he'll have a full choir, full orchestra, rhythm section, two drummers, and Battle Cat. and and yeah, but again, that's what we get when we don't have those people in our way. We change the world musically, and we do all kinds of things incorporating our music. Who would think to have a jazz band would have a full orchestra and a full choir and a DJ? That only happens when you take them out of our equation and make it genuinely something that we create from our grassroots. But for those of you who follow me on YouTube at DwannB, the same DwannB that's here, follow that same tag on YouTube, and I'll see y'all. All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.